lot of stuff on the street that you don't even know about. When you go home tonight and go to bed and go to sleep, you don't know what these guys deal with. Again, I've offered you guys to come out and ride every board meeting. It's in my package. Very few have ever taken us up on it. You need to see what these guys deal with and what they face. And we are in a crisis. If we don't do something right, we're going to lose more of them. And that's pretty frightening for us. Because we're not getting the return of the public wanting to be officers right now, men or women.
So where do we go from here then? Do we need to sit down and have another get together with Linda and see where we're at financially? See what we can actually afford right now, and then, you know, budget time's gonna be coming up here pretty soon. And then, I mean, I only know what's handed to me. I mean,
there's one gentleman in the room that was offered 2 jobs as of today. There's 4 more looking. There's 1 on the way out.
Well, I mean, we have just discussed, we don't have discuss and approve.
No, that's on Monday, it's just budget. But there's, I know the word crisis has been used, but it's a problem. And we owe it to our citizens that if they call 911, we have people to respond.
And I agree. And we also
We have
owe it to
$5
our
million
citizens
in
that
our
we
general
cannot
fund.
give all the officers a raise that when they go to the bank with their paycheck and it bounces.
We have $5 million in our general fund. We have 19 million in the hole, which I understand is all the departments and all of the different funds. Our sales tax were up 7% last month, correct? Which produced another 234.
Oh, for all 3 sales taxes, only half of that goes to the general fund.
Okay, so 112. You have at least 60,000 that is not being sent out because of the men that have resigned and left. That's left over because you moved 60,000 over into overtime to cover those men who are covering those shifts. So there, from the sales tax increase from last month with 112,000 and the 60,000, easily covers 177,000.
The next problem that we're going to have, just what you just said, with those that are in processes, when that time comes, we really have to, we're going to have to all, you guys are going to have to consider, what do we do with our salary employees? Because our salary employees are 40 hours a week. They don't get any overtime, and that's supposed to be the hours that they work, and the rest is for free. But the problem with that is, right now where we're at, our salary employees are filling 12-hour shifts, working for free, doing things, and it's only going to get worse. Because, say, in the next month, which we can't have a hard line with knowing when and how people are going to leave, but we lost 3 already just this past month, very close together. So say we lose another 3 this month. We currently have 24 police officers. Supposed to have 29. And like I said, we should probably actually have 32, because that way you at least have a little bit of a buffer for officers for when people go out on FMLA, for when people want to go out on vacation, then you at least have that buffer when you're fully staffed, or we're far from fully staffed. We have 24-hour officers left. If we lose 3 officers, if we lose 4 officers, we're down to 20. Our salary employees have to step up as well, and they have to fill these extra shifts.
Dusty and I we're going to pick up shifts also. The problem is that we have our detectives.
They can't do their job.
And they have a complete different job as they need to take care of all these investigations. So it's affecting the whole department.
And you're talking sexual assaults, burglaries, things that have to be followed up on, things that are very important to ensure that we're taking care of for our community. And we're going to have to turn that over to Highway Patrol. That makes no sense with our community, with our police force, with this community being the size that it is. Those are the things that we have to look, again, holistically at the big picture of what we're actually looking at, moving forward.
So I guess our next move would be Monday's meeting, voting on one of these three options. Is that correct?
That's what we're here to decide. You all have to make that decision, and, I'd like for you to present some options, what you want to do and how it needs to be worded on the agenda for Monday, and then hopefully how it's going to be paid for.
For clarification, I'm just seeing this today too. Is this across the board, or you have some information on the last page that indicates it may not? Is it 10% across, or?
So the Evergreen Pay Study, when you actually put in the officer's payroll, when you actually put in their hourly rate and you add 10% to that, as in a 10% increase, some it affects as a 4-step increase. Others, if you do a 4-step increase, they would actually be making even more.
Right.
So depending on how the board wants to look at that and depending on how the board wants to review that, there's 3 officers that have the 3 steps instead of the 4 across the board. And the difference with that would be another $7,000. If you just went 4 steps across the board, whether it be somebody making a little bit more than 10%, but not 12%, not 11, just somewhere a little bit over 10%. So if you wanted to do that across the board, it would be an additional $7,000.
And that would, it matters if you're doing it across the board or if you're dealing with something.
You're wanting it to do it individually based, correct?
Yes.
You have some people excluded, right?
There are 3, yes.
Okay, that's what
Yes,
we're
sir.
asking.
Yes, sir.
You can't do a 10% across
Yes,
the
sir.
board if there's anyone excluded.
And the only reason why that is because there are 3 employees who are already in that 10% increase range. There are actually even a couple dollars more than that. On top of, if the officer would get a 10% increase, those 3 officers are already above that currently right now.
And just a caution, again, from working with Evergreen on the comp study, I know that Mayor, you were in with the study, and Linda, you were on it as well. You'll want to be cognizant of compression issues. I know you have those outliers.
They would still be making over $2 more an hour than.
Yeah,
than the
it's
next
just one of those things where you have a situation, if you got someone who was maybe 6 years in,
Mhm.
and they're at a step that puts them at, say, 24, and then you move them 2 steps, say they get to 26, and you have somebody who has 20 years and they're at 27. You've got a compression issue there. It doesn't speak. You have to deal with those people on the other end.
And that's honestly, that's what's confusing me about these other agencies that have officers who have been at their agencies for 10 years, making $85,000, and then they're hiring these officers in at $85,000.
That is, from a human resource background, you may want to consider those things. And have a really strong reason or something very strong in minutes for those types of decisions.
So for option 1, there's work to be done. It can't be an instant go in on Monday and vote that I wouldn't have I don't know if we have enough or if we have plenty. No one on this board knows that. So we need to give some time to figure out the situation. That's my opinion. Options 2 and 3, again, I think we can probably work with those.
I would
Just a bit.
respectfully disagree and say all 3 need to be on there on Monday. Unless you're ready to answer to the citizens why we don't have a police department.
Well, that goes back to, and I hate saying it because we've said it for so many years, put the Band-Aid over it. If it's a massive hemorrhage and you put a Band-Aid over it, it's still going to bleed out. And as others have indicated, this has been a reoccurring thing over the years to where it temporarily for a short period gets fixed, but then the next thing you know, we're still way behind. We're going to be down even more officers very shortly. That's why we're saying this definitely is a critical point. This is a crisis point.
Option 2 without option 1 isn't gonna do anything. I don't even honestly know, I mean, quite honestly, just because $2,000 just isn't really anything right now, as far as by the time they get taxes out. I don't think that one is, can offer it, but it's not gonna do anything unless we have option 1. Option 3, I think, would be a great incentive. As a department, I think if we were able to assign vehicles and let them take them home, that would be beneficial across the board.
I like that incentive a lot better than the $2,000.
Yeah.
The reason I said option 2 is because that's what was presented, okay?
My bad. The reason I mentioned, because what we were giving is the top 3 options. So I'm assuming that this is what they're requesting. So that's why I took what you gave me and I, looked at this and saying, yeah, 2 and 3 is definitely something we can work with.
Yes, I gave you.
Says it's not worth anything. Well, that's fine. I'm just receiving what you're telling me, sir.
And last week I gave you, or the other day, I gave you guys, I think, 5 options. And again, those are just different things to take into consideration to look at. I'm giving a top 3 as in.
Your top 3.
These are just in my personal opinion. It might not be your opinion. Everybody has their own thoughts as to what might help best. So again, and I know that there's probably more options out there that we could be looking into as well. As simple as, and this is going to sound silly, but as simple as back in 2008 when the economy crashed and they told us as the police department, you're no longer getting your uniforms pressed because we're not paying that expense. You're no longer going to have department issued phones so we can contact you in case we need to because we can't cover that cost. Just those little benefits cumulatively occurring and losing those incentives to make it look more appealing is what continues to make it worse, harder.
It's hard for us to sit up here as a board too and try to figure this out because we have to do it in this setting.
Right.
We can't meet each other at McDonald's, 3 of us, and sit down and try to put our heads together. It's against the law for us to do that. So everything we do has to be done right here. And then, you hand us this tonight and we're studying and sitting here scratching our head. I don't know if you all think we're just a bunch of dummies up here going, well. But when it's just handed to us and you're trying to think of the best options to do everything, it has to be done right here.
Well, I've said this many a time in the past. I do believe the money's there. Every year, I've been on the board for 16 years, and every year, we've always told that we're running under a deficit every year. You think after 16 years of running in a deficit, we wouldn't have no money at all. For some reason, like I said, we had $19 million in the bank. I think we need to do whatever we have to do to make this work. We can't leave the citizens of Troy unprotected. It's just something that we got to do. Option one, like I said, I'm in 100% agreement with it. We need to do something definitely. Option two, yeah, it's an incentive. Will it work? Somewhat, I think it will. As far as the car, taking the cars home, I kind of got mixed feelings on that one, but if it works, I'm all for it. I think that we have to do something to try to make things work. And like I said before, I would like somebody to be able to sit down and prove to me that we're broke enough that we can't afford to protect the people in this town. I don't think that's an option. You know, we have to protect the people. I did a ride along. It was an easy day. They didn't have a whole lot that day, but there's just situations that arise. Like I said, you pull